Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to another Zombicide unboxing. This is for another classic expansion pack. This was set number 5, Moustache pack number 2. So we're going to get 3 new characters only in this one. We're going to get their zombie and Zombvivor versions. Just a quick note on what the Zombvivor versions are is this: once your character survivor dies, you can re-resurrect them as a zombie version by flipping over their player card and playing with them as that point. Yes, it's a pretty fun way. Or you can just start the game with them like that if you would choose to. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this. So now, if you, for some reason, don't own any of the classic and you're looking at picking this up because you have season, or not season, but 2.0, you can definitely just add any of these characters into there. If you get the reboot pack for season 2, you can have the new smaller cards with them. Otherwise, you can always just use these bigger cards. There's nothing that's going to prevent you from doing that. Some of the abilities do change from some characters here and there, but they're like 95% the exact same stuff from one to the other. Just because sometimes the abilities, the actual keywords and stuff did change as well, or they remove some abilities or combine things. Alright, so we're going to start with Leroy here, who is Mr. T. Probably from his hit show, the A-Team. Not the A-Team. A-Team. So here it says miniature here. And you just zoom in on him. So of course this is called the Moustache pack because all 3 of these guys have some pretty darn epic mustaches. I hate when this won't zoom right or focus right. Come on. There you go. Oh, pity the foo. So he's got his big old machine gun there. He's got his mohawk. You can see some of his gold jewelry hanging in there. His vest. I did not know his pants were that short, though. Alright, so what does good old Leroy bring to the table? He is going to start with Tough, which will let him ignore the first point, or the first wound he would get every phase. Yellow, of course, is always +1 action for these guys. In orange, +1 damage for combat or shove. Shove lets you select, as long as the zombies in your zone, you can select an adjacent zone and push all the zombies out. Does it cost an action for free? But only once during each of your turn. So you can't shove a guy, move into the zone, shove them, move them. Then red, +1 free combat action, +1 die roll for combat or Reaper combat. And Reaper, of course, means whenever you take out a zombie, you can take out one of the additional type. And since it's combat, he doesn't care if it's ranged or melee. So he's a really all-around character. Tough and Shove are going to kind of want him to maybe get up close. But you can also act with him using as a full range character as well, because all his stuff had additional stuff for combat. So extra damage is really great in the orange. Reaper is really helpful if you can eliminate a bunch of the same guys. Very cool. And if we flip to his Zombvivor version, so there he is. Now he's holding the gun while he's actually going to attack now instead of just being in ready position. See if we can get zoomed in on, focused in on him at all. I wonder if just this is in the way here. There we go. Now he's a little bit more angry and aggressive. Firing up, getting ready to shoot. And you know, like one thing I always like about this is if you do paint your miniatures at all, and if you pick up packs like these with the Zombvivors, if you don't want to use the Zombvivor version, you can always just use these guys as additional zombies. So instead of just being the sluggish zombies running around, you can all of a sudden now have zombies that have weapons. Should be kind of fun. And maybe even add an additional special house rule if that's your choice. So he keeps Tough. Zombvivors have 2 extra things going for them. One, they have 5 health instead of the original 2. But they also, your yellow one, instead of getting a free action to do whatever they want, it's always specified to a specific task. So this drops them down where you can only do melee actions. But it's not terrible because of his next two. He has Shove and Super Strength. Super Strength turns all his attacks into 3 damage. Or any of his melee weapons into 3. So he's going to really focus on melee in this. Then in red, he has +1 die roll for combat, Dreadnought, Walker, and Reaper combat. So he keeps his Reaper combat, but he gains the Dreadnought ability. Survivor knows all wounds of the coming from the standard zombie type are listed, so he does not take any damage from walkers. So this one really wants him to be a melee character. He's already getting ignore damage early on, but once you get down to that Dreadnought, he can just stand in and start whapping around with his attacks, doing 3 damage, which is more than enough to take out any walker anyhow, but now he can apply that for every single zombie, so he can take out bigger guys even quicker without having to worry about. He can just skip over all the walkers and let them keep hitting him, and they'll focus on him. So that is pretty cool. All right, our next survivor up is Dick. So this is Will Ferrell as Ron Burgundy from Anchorman. Excuse me. So he's kind of a very gentlemanly look. I don't know why this is being such a pain. Just focusing on the picture I'm trying to zoom in on. I shouldn't have to move this. There we go. So he's in a very dapper suit. Now, his picture did have a very interesting pattern on it, but of course it doesn't always apply to the miniature. But he's a big old giant. He's probably some sort of magnum. But yeah, he's got his big old 70s stash there, of course. It's just, again, we're talking about iconic mustaches in here. So yeah, it's red and white checkered. Now I think if I paint this guy, I'm definitely not going to probably paint that pattern. I am not that good. So he starts with Lucky, which will let him re-roll dice. Anytime he does an action with dice, he can re-roll them, taking all the new dice roll with it. In orange, +1 die for combat, and Zombie Link. Zombie Link will mean anytime a zombie spawn draws an extra activation card, he gets to take an extra full turn. Not just one action, but a full turn before the zombies will get their extra activation off. So that means basically they'll be doing stuff, then that'll spawn them, they'll get him go again, but he'll get a full turn. Which means he can eliminate a bunch of the guys before possibly they act, or at least maybe get away. And then in red, 1 free combat action, Distributor and Hit and Run. Hit and Run means anytime he defeats a zombie in combat, he gets a free movement action. So this is very helpful for if you finished off, if you're too many zombies, you're not going to be able to take them all out. You have the option of running away. Or the other direction is you take out the last one, you can start moving right away towards the next group. So you don't have to waste extra movements on them. Distributor says, using a skill alters spawn steps during the zombie phase. When resolving a spawn step during the zombie phase, draw as many cards as there are spawn zones. Assign them freely to the zones. So this is a really interesting ability because that means, let's say you have 3 spawn cards. One's a couple of walkers, one's 2 runners, and 1 is an abomination, right? So now you can pick where you put them, and you can be like, hey, let's put the abomination on the farthest spot instead of there. In that order, it would have been the 3rd spot, which might have been closer to where your guys are. You could put the runners in the middle and maybe put the walkers later, like closer to you, because we can deal with walkers quicker. But let's say it was like 7 walkers and it was 1 runner. Maybe you're going to put the 1 runner next to you, because even though he has 2 actions, he's going to be easier to deal with than 7 walkers. And maybe put the walkers farther away than even the abomination, because they're like, the abomination's a pain, but he still can only move so fast. So it's kind of a fun to get a little play around with that. For his other side, we got his picture there. And there's his zombie miniature. See if I could, maybe I'll read the face. There we go. So yeah, there he is. Instead of just holding, picked up a bigger gun. Possibly an AK-47, some sort of assault rifle. As a zombie, he's like, rawr, I'm gonna do even more brains. But yeah, definitely cool. Alright, then what does he have for some abilities here? He keeps his lucky. In yellow, now he has 1 free ranged action. In orange, +1 damage for any combat action, and keeps zombie link. So he's gonna do some extra damage, which is pretty cool. In red, he keeps distributor, hit and run, but then he gains a Reaper combat. So he's gonna do some extra damage for all of that. Any of his combat. And the fact is he has +1 damage as well, means he can take out bigger things more often. And if you give him that range in yellow, so you got to be shooting and doing some good damage there as well. Pretty cool. Alright, our last character in here is Paul. I grabbed the wrong one. And Paul is... I just forgot what his name was. Mickey Rourke. So Mickey Rourke here, this picture is probably from Tool from the Expendables series. I think the hat is what kind of gives it away there. Kind of matches the hat from the picture. So he's wielding some double machetes. Now we already had Machete Danny Trejo and some other sets, so it's kind of, and those two can easily get confused. Especially doesn't help when they're giving them both big giant blades. So what does Paul do for us? Paul starts with Swordmaster, which treats all melee weapons as if they had the dual symbol. So he can pick up, so here he has like a bigger blade and a smaller blade, but yeah, he can pick up any of them and use them as dual wieldings. So that kind of makes him a little bit more dangerous. In orange, +1 die for melee or 1 free melee action. In red, +1 damage for melee. A lot of extra damage on some of these guys. +1 die roll for melee and Bloodlust melee. And Bloodlust says, spend 1 action on Survivor. He moves up to 2 zones to a zone containing at least 1 zombie. Then he benefits from if a free melee attack. So this lets you basically combine your move and attack into 1 action, but you have to move in your zone with a zombie and you have to attack them. But that's not a bad thing either, right? That's what his whole goal is to be doing. Alright. Then we have, on the flip side, we have his Zombvivor version. So I like how he has his blades in, and then now he has them pulled out. Alright, so there is his pose. His shirt's all open now. He didn't lose his hat completely, just knocked it off to the back. Which I do find kind of fun. Not having everyone that has a hat always having it knocked off. But yeah, now he's much more in a attack pose. Alright, so what does Zombie Paul do for us? He keeps Swordmaster. In yellow, now he has 1 free melee action. In orange, +1 die for melee, and he has Death Grip, or Death Grasp. It says, don't discard item cards when a survivor receives a wound. This skill is ignored if there's no space left in an inventory to receive a wound card. So, this is a little bit different than 2.0 rules. So, in Classic, whenever you got a wound, you have to discard an item to replace the wound, basically, in your inventory. So when you don't, eventually you might lose your basic weapons. Basically, the zombie hitting you hard enough to knock something out of you. So if you're carrying, 2 guns, you're going to have to lose one of them. This is allowing him to keep his Swordmaster ability, because he can just always hold on to the items until he doesn't have any room left, and he's going to be forced to do it. But then again, now with a Zombvivor, they also have 5 hit points, so you can eventually run out of room if he takes too much damage. In red, he has +1 damage for melee, +1 die roll for melee, or Barbarian. And Barbarian means, it's actually listed in this particular book that I have. I want to check this again. Some of these change from one version of the game to the next. So Barbarian. When resolving a melee action, Survivor replaces a dice with the number of melee weapons it is using by the number of actors in a zone, including other survivors and himself. So that means if he's attacking a zone and there are five miniatures in the zone, he rolls 5 dice instead of maybe the 2 printed on the weapon. And this will work for anything that affects like +1 die for melee and stuff. So if he already has 5, he has +1 die for melee, and his orange he actually gets 6 die. So it makes him more powerful to attack larger groups, but if he's only attacking 1 or 2, he's going to probably just use his regular weapon. Alright, so that's what we have for that. 3 new survivors with 6 different miniatures. For Moustache pack number 2, there's a pack number 1 we can also pick up at some other point. So it's just something you should pick up if you want some more survivors. Definitely a way to pick it up. If you have the reboot pack for 2.0, then you can use all these guys very easily by mixing them into there. If you don't, again, they're still very playable. They're just going to have oversized cards. They're not going to fit on the little trays at all. But you can always just have them sitting next to the tray and use the tray to keep track of other stuff if you like. Alright, that's what we have for this. Hope to see you guys later. Check out my other videos. Hit me up in the comments. Bye.